Welcome to the Greypilled Podcast, where truth's unveiled, exploring the depths beyond what is retail. Conspiracies, esoteric knowledge so enthralling. Open up your mind, let's dive into the sprawling. Oh yeah. Greypilled awaken, question what you know. Peeling back the layers, let your curiosity grow. Uncover hidden realities, break the mold. Come take the journey, let your mind unfold.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Greypilled Podcast. I'm your host, Jules. You know me. Happy Sunday. Here with two of my buddies. Got Ani Osaru here. What's going on, Ani?
What's going on with you, brother? It's good to be on the Greypilled Podcast.
It's good to have you. And Thomas, the Paranoid American, back with us. Thomas, how are you doing, sir?
Look, guys, I'm no longer paranoid, actually. I'm done with all this conspiracy stuff. I'm over it.
He's done. He's moving on to better things.
I feel like the official stories just make more sense if you really think about it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you could say that.
Only the official ones.
Oh wait, we're not on YouTube. Never mind.
We're not on YouTube. We're not on YouTube.
We can talk about some real thing, and maybe this will be on YouTube. But if it is on YouTube, you'll probably hear a few words censored here and there.
The edited version for
so
sure.
You should probably be on Rumble if you want to watch the regular version.
Yeah, everybody go to Rumble and watch, or if you're on X, thank you for watching. We are here today to talk about this guy named John Todd. Lance Collins, John Collins. He went by a few names, I think. There's really only one picture of him, right?
I think there might be a handful that you could find, but there's one main one from like a black and white photo that a lot of people end up seeing, and then there's like the book cover that we have in the thumbnail.
Yes. Here, let me see. I should have saved the image. Maybe I could bring it up. This one right here. Yeah, I can zoom in. I'm on a MacBook, so
it's basically like a Xerox photo that's been like Xerox of a Xerox about 50 times.
Yeah.
I wish I could strive to be this like detached from the internet, that like the best picture you could find of me might as well just be like ink that someone spilled on a piece of paper.
Yeah. It makes his presence even more mysterious in some way, just like that really being the only picture of him, kind of like that Valiant Thor guy, right? Yeah, I don't know. Is that really the only picture? Has always kind of interested me, so I'm happy to dive into this guy with you guys.
I didn't realize that was the only picture of him, but yeah, I think you're right. I don't think I've ever seen another picture of John Todd anywhere.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think so. Very mysterious character.
Well, let me say this. The only reason I know about this guy is that a couple weeks or months ago, somebody just hit me up randomly, said they were watching some of my content and noticed I like to cover the music industry, preferably, talking about the satanic showings of the Illuminati eye and all of that keeps occurring. I mean, not just in the music industry, it's everywhere now.
It's everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, and they said, well, have you ever heard of a guy named John Todd? And sent me a video, and the video was very surprising to me. I thought he was telling, I kind of like to fill a person out, and the more and more he was going into being some type of whistleblower, being in the music industry. I think it was Zodiac Records or something. I'm pretty sure you're about to break that down for us, but I was just amazed, without saying too much. I was like, who is this guy? And why doesn't people, kind of talk about him a little bit more? And I got reached out to by Jules when he saw me posted on Twitter. And I'm just interested to know more about who he was and the connections to why he was a part of the occult and the most deep, sinister, whatever facts he did. Because I think you said he did more videos or something. I only saw one clip.
Okay, so there's a collection, and I'm sure all you guys watching have seen this. It's a collection of basically like speeches or sermons. What would you call it, Thomas, that he's doing at this church? Like these talks about the Illuminati and things that no one at that time could really know. You couldn't go research this stuff. This stuff wasn't out there in books yet. I mean, this guy really, it seemed, had an experience in this life. And when you read Fritz Springmeier's book, The Bloodlines of the Illuminati, it's fascinating, dude. It's the same story, with him being a member of that Collins bloodline, who came over here from England. And we can get into that here in a second. I have a written history, basically, of his whole family. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the show Dark Shadows. Dark Shadows? Yeah.
It sounds really familiar.
It's a vampire named Barnabas Collins. And they remade it into a movie back, I think Tim Burton did it with Johnny Depp and on it. It was cheesy. I actually didn't like it. The show they made back in the 70s, was the aesthetic of it was super creepy, super like neo-gothic, like very very cool. And the whole story is about vampires and witches, real, pretty cool shit. Yes, Far Side, the Collins family.
Well, yeah.
The 13 bloodlines. But apparently this family in Dark Shadows is about his family.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that at all. That's crazy.
Yeah, and that his
his alleged family. I might have to play the role of devil's advocate in this.
You can be that guy. No, and we actually need that here today, because this is basically like deciding, was this guy a true come to Christ whistleblower?
Maybe.
Or was he a psyop? Was he a plant put in there by his family to kind of, I don't know, instate this fear of satanic panic, or what happens today, what they do openly now? I don't know, man. This a lot of people think that he's on point with everything he says. There's a couple things that he says that when I looked over it, kind of seemed a little too like, that's kind of, and then you look it up and you never see it anywhere else. For instance, he refers to the Illuminati a lot as Moriah. It's M-O-R.
The wind of Moriah, yeah.
Yes. Now, this is the place where Abraham took his son Isaac to be sacrificed. And then God came down and stopped him. Right. But when you look up this name, you find absolutely nothing anywhere of it having to do with the Illuminati or any secret order for that matter. It's not a secret order in itself. And so it's kind of like maybe he was taking some things out of the Bible and using those as, I don't know.
Well, do we know for sure what his name is? Because some people keep calling him. The only reason I asked that, because when I put John Todd in, I got 666 in gematria. So I put his name
really?
That is supposed to be his real name, John Wayne Todd. John Todd. That's his name. He had a bunch of names that he claimed. He claimed to be a Collins. So there's also like John Todd Collins and a few variations of that too.
Lance Collins. Lance Collins was his name. That was at the music industry, I guess. Zodiac Records, maybe.
He
had four names that he went by. So John Todd Collins, Lance Collins, Chris Saren Collins and Christopher Collins, in
Chris
addition to
Collins.
his actual name of John Todd.
Okay.
No, I did. Because Lance Collins equals 47. It equals 119. That's all CNI. I'm familiar with that. But the 47 sticks out in the regular ordinal cipher. You know, it's 47 degrees Masonic compass. So, I mean, it's not a coincidence. Like every name that I was putting in when this first person sent me information, because he did tell me that his mother was somewhat involved with the occult. Did you guys ever hear that before?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So he's saying his mother was like a witch or something, and she was a part of I don't know if it's theosophical or whatever it was, but it's like she was known to be a part of the occult. I tried to look it up, couldn't get nothing on it. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's going to
guessing.
be a trend that John Todd related. When he makes a claim, you'll find out that the only place that makes that claim is his book or another book that came out after his book that's referencing his book, and sometimes it's not obvious.
Right.
Yeah. So he had a foster mother. I think her name may have been Louise Schutner, perhaps. I have that name right here with a question mark by it, so who knows? And he had a biological mother in Columbus, Ohio, who gave him $2,000 and a ticket to New York, where he spent 6 months practicing higher magic with other teenage wizards and witches. This was when he was younger. So, little bit about the Collins family.
Well, I just put Collins family in gematria, and I got 201.
What's that? What's 201 associated with?
Well, if you don't know, and this is very much known by the Kabbalistic community, that 201 is like the highest number. It's like equivalent of putting somebody's name in and getting 666, pretty much. Order of Illuminati, that's the original name, equals 201. There's 201 limestone steps to the Great Pyramid. And there's 201 days to a sorrow cycle to an eclipse. When an eclipse happens, 201 days, you know, this is a sun coat. So they play off this type thing. So 201 is like a big number. Also to the Jesuit order. I know you heard of Jesuit order. The Jesuit order is 201.
Okay.
So it's a number that's constantly repeated. If you watch enough TV shows, you'll see it pop up out of nowhere. They'll just say something equals 201. I was just watching Breaking Bad. You guys ever seen Breaking Bad?
It's probably been a while.
Well,
but great show.
yeah. When what's the guy named Heisenberg?
Oh, yeah, Walter White.
Walter White. When he's loading the meth, the crystal blue meth, and he has to get it right for Gus Fring, whatever his name, Frey. It has to be 201 pounds. Go back and watch the show when he was putting in those little crates before they killed him, blew him up. It had to be exactly 201 pounds. And Jesse Pinkman lived at the address 322. Yeah, Jesse Pinkman lived at 322. So these numbers, it pops up randomly, but 201 is like the biggest number, guys. So like anytime I see 201 is like when Juan hits the Illuminati confirmed.
Right. Illuminati confirmed.
Yeah, so Collins family 201, and his name equals 666. So obviously there's something.
There's something there.
Yeah, it's either he's bullshitting and he's a part of a secret society, or maybe he was a whistleblower and he's a moonchild for these people.
Yeah. That's it's really hard to decipher, to be honest with you. It's up subliminal. So yeah, man, the Collins family, that's crazy. That numerology with their name, you find that everywhere. I just did an episode with John Lee Chowbeck who came on and talked about the number 77 and how that's tied into it's tied into Semyaza, who is one of the
angels,
the leaders of the Ajiji, the fallen angels. Fascinating stuff, man. I'd love to get him on something with you because it seems like you know a lot about that.
That's what they call it, Uncle Sam.
Yeah, man. Yeah. You find this stuff everywhere, dude.
Yeah, because uncle is supposed to mean unclean, and the Enochian angels are supposed to be the unclean spirits and stuff like that. So I read in a Masonic book one time. It was like a Moorish Masonic book that they said that they're secretly saying Samyaza, Uncle Sam. I don't know, because I know Sam is the same thing.
It's the same with Samael. You know, Samael in the esoteric, he is the regent of Mars. And if you look into Sumeria, that's where the Ajiji were hanging out on Mars. Now, either in the ether or in physical incarnate. So it's very interesting stuff. And when you see it line up, man, it's crazy, bro. So Francis Collins owned the first ship that landed in the Americas.
Whoa.
Yes, this was the Puritans, half of them being witches fleeing from Scotland. So the Collins family was the second most important family in the occult. I wonder who was the first.
And this is all according to John Todd, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. This is okay.
Because so there's like a direct lineage here, and it's hard to weave through because none of these authors have gotten really any sort of, I would say, like academic credentials or credit. Like no one's reviewing these and including them in their thesis, so they kind of get pushed away into obscurity. But it kind of starts in my mind with John Todd, not as the epicenter, but if you just use him as a starting point, you got John Todd that's listing out who he says the top quote Illuminati families are, like the American Illuminati families. And then from John Todd, he collaborates with Jack Chick, who makes all the little chick tracks and all those, and like those become really huge in the Christian community, especially like homeschool sort of like renegade church community. So you've got John Todd that starts with this information, gives the Jack Chick. Jack Chick replicates this. He's the most prolific comic book publisher of all time, but he doesn't get credit because it's religious. And because they're religious, they're not really considered comics. They're 100% comics. He even came out with one called The Broken Cross, which is related to this thing John Todd was on for a while. But the final step on that one is Fritz Springmeier, which we brought up. And Fritz Springmeier, he's the one that elaborates on all the different Illuminati families, the Astors and the Bundys and the Collins. Like he goes through all of them, right? But I'm fairly sure at this point, having done like a bunch of this research, at least like the American conspiracy theorists, that a lot of that starts with John Todd. But there's no real easy links because Fritz doesn't give any sources really when he's talking about the Illuminati families. Jack Chick doesn't because it's a friggin' comic book. And then John Todd being the first one that starts to mention this, but he doesn't give any sources either. His sources are like me, like he basically says, I was there in that. He himself, and you said that his mom was like a witch in the occult, and it wasn't just any witch in some random occult. It was that she was a Grand Druid priestess in the highest levels of the Illuminati.
Mothers of Darkness.
Mothers of Darkness, right? So
yes, it talks about, so that ties in the Belgium castle with all the royalty in Belgium and the French. Like, dude, it ties into a lot.
So this is basically John Todd saying, from his own point of view, he's saying like, I'm in the top 10 families of the Illuminati, like that's the bloodline that he came from, and that he was trying to portray that he was this big whistleblower and like, hey guys, like I was actually inside this club, I know all about it, and I'm going to be spilling the beans. And that was where he's kind of got his start. And a lot of the other references that we even find to the Illuminati names and Satanism and music, all this really stems in a large part from John Todd, or at least the late 60s, early 70s. Like he was right at the epicenter of that.
So he's like the godfather whistleblower, you're saying, to claiming Illuminati family lineage.
alleged whistleblower. Yeah, because if you want to keep getting into this even deeper, so there's a few different debunking paths. So the most official version of it, if you just go to his wiki page, the official debunking of John Todd is essentially that he was a con man. Just straight up and down, he was a con man. He went to jail for doing the exact things that he claimed that all these Satanists were doing. That he was trying to protect you from. Kind of the story as old as time. So that could also be spun into like, well, he was publicly like that was a character assassination in public as a punishment for revealing all these secrets. You could go that route. There's also the route that he was just absolutely insane. He was just a pure madman. He was a compulsive liar, which has got some strong evidence throughout his entire life and many different facets of life that he just compulsively lied and constantly said one thing and did another thing. Or it's 100% true and he's an angel and, he never did anything wrong and everything was done against him.
I mean, he was on methamphetamine.
Yeah, he was dude. He was This is basically a guy that owned occult bookstores and dabbled in the occult, and he dabbled in drugs, and he dabbled in this like post 1960s, early 1970s time period.
Straight up.
And he had a lot of, I mean, I would say delusions of a grandeur, where he wanted to say that he was in the most important bloodline that the world has ever known, the top ranks of the Illuminati. He also claimed that he was a Green Beret in the military. Like a lot of these things, like source, trust me, bro. That's like his number one source is the trust me, bro.
Yeah, that's definitely good to put out there before we get further into this. So yeah, y'all take some of the stuff with a grain of salt, because you are right, man. When you look into their bloodline in this book, it is a lot of John Todd this, John Todd that. But then he refers to the mothers of darkness and all that stuff. And that's a completely different rabbit hole.
The Winds of Moria is a really good one, because the only places I've ever seen that mentioned before too, I think was like Fritz Springmeyer's.
Yeah.
And he'll just use it just kind of ubiquitously within his book. He'll just mention, the Winds of Moria, but never actually says where that came from. What does that mean? Why are you calling it the Illuminati on one page and the Winds on another page? It's because of this John Todd sort of book. And the John Todd book, by the way, this one right here, which this thing goes for like hundreds of dollars now. It's like almost impossible to find this damn thing.
It's on sale on your website, isn't it?
I got one on the website.
American.com, guys.
But I got this in like the early 2000s, because how could I not buy a book that literally says X Grand Druid versus the Illuminati Fact or Fantasy? I was like, come on, I have to own this thing.
You gotta dive.
And it's essentially like a transcription of this set of cassette. If you look close enough at the artwork, there's like these little cassette tapes that are on.
I saw that
both sides of his head here. So that's a reference.
I thought that was money at first.
No. So those are the cassette tapes. So he, like you were saying, he recorded himself giving like a presentation in church somewhere, recorded on a cassette tape, and then offered these things through mail order, that if anyone wanted to like listen to this John Todd experience, then they could order directly from him, and he would send it. It was like an OG conspiracy Patreon kind of. So that's what the book is. The book is just a transcription of the cassette tapes that he was selling directly to people. And you can find these cassette tapes on YouTube, is probably what you were looking at, Ani.
Well, so yeah, somebody sent me, it wasn't on YouTube, it was a video long removed. It's very old, and they sent me a link to it, and I recorded it and then uploaded it to social media.
You have it?
Yeah, I mean, if I could pull up my Instagram, I could pull it up, or my Twitter, and
find that, man. We can play it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, sure. But I don't know, because his name, I'm looking at his name and his family. There's no coincidence that these numbers are connected with him. So I'm gonna go
Exactly.
off a whim and say something is to it, but I think he could be what Thomas is saying, like they're using him in some type of way to downplay that is true as well. Because if he's a con man, because I think most of these members have to go through some type of humiliation of a character wise, and that kind of makes people in the back of their mind subconsciously not really believe it, straight out when they say something like what he's been saying.
So I
And
think
I was gonna say I also look at John Todd in a realistic sense as a mix between like a honeypot and like a bait sort of situation, to where if you find yourself somehow involved with John Todd, like you're probably also being observed by intelligence or somebody that's got him sort of in their sights, and then maybe he's in like an unwitting recruiter for intelligence. I think that there's some evidence that could
Perhaps,
at least
yeah.
be in the realm of possibility.
Well, yeah, then that goes back to the whole the winds of Moriah or whatever it's called. It's like, did he get saved and just like grab that from the Bible and use that as a representation for the Illuminati? Because here's some things that he said. Anything that is psychic is a counterfeit of God's power by the devil. Superstition is a Christian form of witchcraft. The Catholic Church changed 6 words in the exorcism rites they use because they were copied from 8,000-year-old occult exorcism rites. Apparitions or auras do not appear pure white. Okay. 7 principalities, each with multiple demons under their leader's color. Yeah, he's talking about a lot of exorcism rites and occult rituals and stuff. The Catholic Church is the exact altar of witchcraft, and most ministers who set up there were part of the Temple of Diana, Venus, or it's the worship of Lucifer as well. In some cases, the bell incense. What's up, Ani?
No, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, bro, you're good. I'm just reading off some stuff that he said. The bell, incense, and holy water, which is supposedly salt water, is all from occult rituals. So he's ragging on Catholics. He basically comes in and says everything is satanic. This was the first guy that was like, burn your vinyls, don't listen to the rock and roll. Really.
Well, let me play that video because I want to.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I want to comment. Let me know when it's on the stream.
I think.
But is up there.
We'll go ahead and add this right here so we can see your page. Is this your page?
Do you see it? It should be.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys see that?
Yeah, press the. There you go.
All right. Hold on.
Which Zodiac Productions, its name's been changed since then. I'm not even sure what to call it now, but it's the largest music conglomerate in the world. It owns RCA Records, Columbia Records, Motown Records, owns almost all the concert booking agencies in the United States. And that's not even the name of the company that owns it. The name of the company that owns it is Brenner Enterprises, and Brenner Enterprises is owned by Chase Manhattan. Chase Manhattan's owned by Standard Oil, and Standard Oil is owned by the Lords of London. You can track it all back. You kind of get the idea after a while. But I was the managing president of Zodiac Productions. It's one of my jobs, as being one of these 13 people. Thus, I got to know many of the people who produce music and sing the music and play the music that you play. Now, one of the closest friends that I got during that time that I obtained was a man named David Crosby. I said, David, I'd like to ask you a couple questions. I said, I already know the answers, but I've been gone for 5 years. I'd like to know if certain things are still the way they were when I left. I said, do they still take the master to the temple room? Dave said, yeah. I said, do they still have the coven conjure demons into the master? He said, of course. I said, now, I got to know something. What's the main reason for rock music? He says, the same as when you were in, so that we can play spells on people that we couldn't cast spells upon. The master is a tape about as big as the top of this podium that looks like an overgrown 8-track that the album is cut on and is placed in a machine that produces and presses the records and the 8-tracks and cassettes that you buy. After it's been recorded, it's taken in. This is why a master is cut months in advance before it's released. On the full moon, it's taken in to a temple room about the size of this auditorium that is in every one of the major music companies, behind locked doors up in the executive office. And it's placed on an altar, sitting in the north of the room, and a pentagram engraved in the floor. And 13 hand-chosen witches and wizards and a coven come in and conjure a principality or a power up, usually Regia or something like that, and order him to tell the demons under him to follow every record and every tape coming off of that master. I said, okay, one last thing. I've been hearing that you must be an initiated witch now to get a record contract. He said, that's right. He said, many of us that weren't total witches have to be witches now in order to produce music. Zodiac Productions.
My bad.
That's
So
a perfect example of a John Todd claim because there's a few things that happen in there. One is that it's completely based on a personal conversation that he had with another person. He claims that the person that he talked to, Crosby of Crosby, Stills and Nash, is like a huge power player, right? And he puts himself as what, like the CEO, or he was like VP or something of this Zodiac Records. So
Right.
these three things are consistent with almost every claim John Todd ever makes, that he's running the show at some high level for this large organization, whether it's Illuminati or an actual business or the military or whatever, that the information is a personal dialogue that he has with someone. So you can't really ever look it up because it's like, well, of course that they would deny that. And then it's like basically Satanism involved. So this guy was kind of a trendsetter, right? Like he was a trailblazer in this. No one else was really had cornered this market the way that John Todd had.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. And I noticed he died 6 months and 9 days from his birthday. And I noticed, the 69 of Cancer, the constellation or the zodiac, is right over the Freemasonic arch. So I thought that was interesting. Interesting that he was with Zodiac Records with that connection. But yeah, I mean, some of the
So
stuff
he says though, because that's another one of those claims that if you try and fact check that he even like worked at Zodiac, none of that exists, right? Like there's no, this guy, just like there's only a single picture of him, it seems like, on the entire internet, there's even less when it comes to official documentation about any of the stuff that he claimed, which makes this dude an absolute mystery, because it's not just that there's not documentation to back up what he says, but there's almost no documentation on the dude, period.
So we don't have no confirmation he ever worked at either Zodiac Records. I thought that was
We don't have confirmation about anything except for his military record, because that's can be actually looked up, and his prison record, which, if you believe that he went to prison for the thing that he was officially put in the prison for, but like other than that, he almost doesn't exist on paper. And so I've got a passage from this the John Todd Phenomenon book. So I just want to read like a little bit out of this one, because it kind of goes to what his original claims are with all this stuff. And this is just one tiny little paragraph in this whole big book, so it can't be like the full story here.
Go for it.
So it says, the whole story of Todd's claims of arriving in Columbus, his mother handing him $2,000 check and an airplane ticket to New York City, 6 months understudying Dr. Raymond Buckland, another 6 months in Los Angeles, an initiation as a 6th-level witch into the Grand Druid Council, second only to the Rothschilds and third to Lucifer. All of this does not fit together with other stories Todd had given in the light of other information. So he says he contended in the Grand Druid initiation that it was 6 years at times, other times 4 years, and 2 years. there's only 2 years from 1970 of his army discharge and 1972 of his salvation. So basically, he claimed that after he got out of the military, then he entered into this Grand Druid Illuminati Council. He was initiated as a witch. Sometimes he said that it took him 6 for 2 years. The only thing that would make sense based on, like we were saying, what do we actually know about him? Well, he's got military discharge papers. There's a DD Form 214 that
Didn't he kill
exists in
somebody
1970.
or something? Didn't he like kill somebody?
Later on in life.
Yeah.
1972, he kind of becomes, I don't want to say a born again Christian because that almost puts your finger too much on a specific denomination or something. Like he just becomes born again in his own version of this in 72. So in 72 is when he starts making some of these claims about knowing about Illuminati Grand Council and all this Druid stuff. So really there's a window between 1970 when he gets out of the military and 72 when he starts making these claims publicly. So whatever happened in those 2 years, or if you open your mind up to like the government PSYOP aspect, this is almost, dude, this reminds me so
Was
much
he
of like
MK
Timothy
Ultra?
McVeigh, bro.
That's what I was
Was he
about
MK
to say.
Ultra?
Because
was
like
about to
Timothy
say.
McVeigh, he gets sheep dipped, right? He goes in the military and he doesn't leave under the best terms, and then he starts making all these wild claims and has information that only someone that might be in the know would have. So, anyways, John Todd and Timothy McVeigh kind of have a correlation here where they might have been sheep dipped in the military.
Yeah. I'd say so, dude. I didn't even think about that aspect of it.
Well, I would say, why the fuck is he famous for this stuff? Who made him? What platform back in 71 and 72?
Chick Track Publications, man, because Jack Chick was also sort of an outlier. Like Jack Chick was so controversial that he was kind of excommunicated from the general Christian sphere. He was already anti-Catholic, big time. So that earned him a little bit of ire with like, Catholics, but just mainstream Christianity in general were like, dude, this guy's making way too many crazy claims. And part of that was actually his endorsement of John Todd. That even after a bunch of different churches started coming out and researching John Todd and hiring private investigators to find out if any of these claims were true, they started coming up with like, hey, this guy might be a con man. He might be a plant. He might be here to make you look silly, which a guy named Leo Taxel did to the Catholic Church in the late 1800s. So there was a lot of people on all sides of this that were like, even if we agree with what he's saying, even if we also share his concerns, he might be like stirring us up for who knows what kind of reason. So I think that's another aspect of the John Todd phenomenon, and that's why he got popular. It was essentially Jack T. Chick found this other sort of extremist and was like, bro, blood brother, where you been? You know what I mean? And like they joined forces, and Jack Chick already has a crazy amount of publications out there. So he's just able to immediately like elevate John Todd's reach like almost overnight.
Put his work out there.
Well, now I gotta look into Jack Chick's gematria.
Yeah, I was about to say I should have
Jack
looked more
T.
into
Chick,
Jack
yeah, man.
Chick too.
Oh,
So he goes against Catholics a bunch, man. He also talks about the Rothschilds. He says Rothschilds were born Jewish, but they worship Lucifer, hence the synagogue of Satan. England is considered to the witches what Israel or Palestine is to the Jews or the Protestants, which is where the Star of David. Now, this is interesting.
Well, that's absolutely true. That's Eliphas Levi. He makes those claims all over the place, and he actually says that they're used out of like ignorance. He talks about the Illuminati in his books, like that.
Really?
Yeah, dude. That's actually, in my opinion, that's where the concept of the Illuminati kind of like kept in trends, mostly because of it was in his History of Magic book, and without him writing that in History of Magic, it might have been lost to time. Like I really think that he helped perpetuate just the name Illuminati.
So he says that the witches wear the Star of David, but David was long dead before this star was drawn. His son, Solomon, right, drew it as a hexagram. The word hex comes from this. Witches stand in 5-pointed star or pentagram during a ritual for protection from summoning demons with hexagram. Everything the occult practices and teaches come from what King Solomon knew.
Right, and Solomon and David, the point I think here too to be made is that neither of them invented this symbol. They both inherited this symbol. It had always been known as a magical symbol way before
It was a
they were
sigil,
even around.
probably.
So they inherited this, and it's almost like even theologians, I believe, have kind of come to terms that no one can really pinpoint exactly where the symbol came from, only that it was definitely used.
What, the Seal of Solomon? You could
Correct, or that's
Seal of
also been
Solomon,
called
yeah.
the Star of
The
David because it was
Star
on
of-
David's
Star
shield. But the
of,
reason it was on David's shield was because it had magical powers, and it wasn't like a
Star of
religious
David.
thing. It was just like, might as well put on this extra magical protection. Why not?
Yeah, it can. I mean, we know. I mean, I've heard way back from my master teachers back from the '90s that the Seal of Solomon was very much known when they found it in places in Alexandria, the library they burnt down. It was in books there.
Did
Goes back
that
before-
library really burn down? I sometimes think about that as being one of the first like false flags, man, that they just burnt it and took all the good shit out.
Oh,
when they
definitely.
did it.
Just,
You know?
just the fact that it's called the library is in itself a psyop, because it wasn't a library. If anything, it was like a freaking museum combined with a warehouse, combined with like when you say Library of Alexandria, which is the most common way to refer to it, you just maybe imagine like a really big building with lots of books and all the books got burned. But they had mechanical
Tools
items,
and
compasses, magical runes. Like they had a lot of physical objects in there.
dude.
All over the world, they had stuff because I think Egypt influenced a great amount of different cultures, and a lot of the teachers out of Timbuktu. There was a lot of teachers there, and then you had the Gnostic sects get set up throughout Europe. You have some of the Greek civilization borrowing stuff and teaching certain phonetics that they learned from Alexandria after conquering, because the Greeks conquered Egypt last, and then the Romans conquered Greece and said all of it is ours. The Greek stuff, because their guys got set up from the Greece
and all these stories are ours, and now we're gonna change them and put our gods in there.
Well, and even the Greeks in some places were just stealing from the Minoans and the Phoenicians. And by the time that Rome fully took over the entire region, they had already destroyed the Phoenicians and the Carthaginians. Like they were so far out of the picture that no one really even knew about them until they started like digging deep again. But yeah, like all of the gods and the practices seems like it was the Phoenicians, and all the other gods that they absorbed into that were kind of like covering up the tracks a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, we stole it from the Greeks. Oh yeah, we stole it from the Minoans. But really, it was a way for them to worship the Phoenician gods.
The Phoenicians were split off from Indus Kush. It was the Kushite Empire. That's where the Phoenicians come out of.
It's the same. It's the same
whole region. You say what?
I was just saying, when you get to how these different gods were worshipped, these different deities, it's really the same pantheons. I have a show where I dive into that, and so the Canaanite Phoenician timeline of the gods or the fallen is one of the most important, because these deities are still prayed to today. There's something about those names. There's something about those kind of practices and those rituals they were doing in that time that still ring true today to what they're doing out in the open, even on a much larger scale. A lot of people just can't see it because no one knows about this stuff, you know?
Well, I think everything, I don't think that there's any secrets. I think the biggest secret is that there isn't no secrets. It's just who has the knowledge.
There you go.
Yeah. Because we're not taught this. So it's kind of like trying to teach a dog English. You know, because we're not taught it, but these other people already have the knowledge. So when you said that they're still worshiping those deities and the names have power, I think that there's different secret societies that understand vibration as a language, and they know when they utter certain tones in the barbarous way, like when they repeat,
Yeah.
and they called those people barbarous because they said they would say what was it, Baba? They would say Baba. They would say the same thing over and over, and it was like you're babbling, and they called those people
Okay.
the Berbers because they didn't understand it, because it was like Baba, Baba, but they were really in sync with some type of linguistic vibrationally that could access certain codes that's locked in this matrix, and it would give them some type of ability to manipulate
Talk to these
physical reality.
entities. Yeah.
Right. They could influence and manipulate physical reality, and they looked at that. People looked at that as power, so they thought that the God had power, but it was the vibration in which they unlocked the coding of, and they could speak the vibration. And I guess by saying it enough, when you do these ritual seances, they figured out that the vibration could be manipulated. And
That's
there
fascinating.
was a Mexican scientist that did the same thing. What was his? Dr. Grinberg did that same thing. I was just reading up on him. Yeah, Dr. Grinberg. They killed his ass for, he was about to break into some physics concept of what I just told you guys, and he died. Well, I don't know if he was murdered. Some people say he was murdered, but right before he was about to submit his final report, I don't know if his peers would have shot it down or they already knew that he was submitting it. He just ended up dead on the
How did he
multiverse.
die?
Happens a lot.
So yeah, brain experiments on. So he was presenting the synergic theory, or synergic theory. It doesn't list here how he died. Oh, let me look it up real quick. Dr. Grinberg's death.
I'll look at it. Subliminal.
He died. They said he was presumably killed. The Mexican media declared Grinberg, a disappeared person, was presumably killed or secretly imprisoned for political reasons. He just disappeared.
That happens a lot. Unfortunately. Let's see.
But yeah, the point I was bringing that up is that what John Todd said in that book, some of these things are already discovered. They know the esoteric secrets, like Solomon is just Sol, S-O-L, sun,
Oh,
and
man.
Amen, and Amen means hidden. So hidden sun, hidden Sol is the hidden sun, which is the black sun. The hidden sun is the black sun, but if you encode that in esotericism, Solomon, or the hidden sun, Amen Ra, who is the god opposite of Ra, he's a different archetypal form of Osiris. The hidden sun, or the black sun, is simply the soul. The soul is supposed to be archetypically representative inside the body as the sun.
The soul being the SOL on Solomon, right?
Yeah, but it's hidden because you can't see the sun. You can see the sun outside, but you can't see this sun inside you, the soul.
Right.
You know? So the hidden star, the hidden sun, the same thing, you know. So those codes were secretly imbued into deitic archetypes, but they're just talking about different components of everyone's spirituality. It's just hidden from us, and these other people they're tapping into it every day while we're thinking like, ooh, they got some secret.
This stuff is a lot easier to learn about now, dude.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get yeah, he talks about the Jews and he talks about the Catholics. He talks about the show Dark Shadows, and somebody said in the comments up here they had brought back up that Johnny Depp had that movie. Yeah, we had talked about that. And then someone talked about the movie Twilight, the vampire family in that movie, their last name was Collins. I don't
Wow.
know. Yeah, it's kind of weird synchronicities there. And then yeah, so he basically, during one of these interviews that he has, he just goes off and he's like, there are 5,000 covens, or he says it like coven.
Yeah,
I
come.
guess
he,
I've never.
he mispronounces Illuminati a lot too. He calls it Illuminati, and he did that for a couple years, which feels like it hurts some of the credibility. Like if he was in the maybe like the actual members, but he slowly starts to change it until in the mid 70s he's saying Illuminati, but he starts out in a lot of his early talks saying Illuminati and saying covens, right?
Or
Yeah.
is he from a different culture?
No,
Or
dude, dude's from freaking LA and Ohio.
Oh
He's
yeah,
like,
just some
yeah,
white guy.
some random.
Oh,
He just didn't, again, like devil's advocate on this
Play
concept, but
devil's advocate, Thomas.
I feel like there's a lot of evidence that would say that this dude was just kind of flying by the seat of his pants, got a little clout for himself, and just rode that clout wave as far as he could, making it up as he went. And in doing so, could very easily have made himself like that honeypot character, like I mentioned, where now you've got, like a Mr. Magoo, like feeling his way through the occult world and the Christian world, and someone in the background being like, let's keep our eye on that guy. Hey, if anyone buddies up to that guy, keep your eye on them too. And like using him as like this bait, whether or not he knew it. I feel like there's a lot of art, but yeah, like weird things about mispronouncing common words constantly seem like it would hurt the credibility.
Well, he talks about how his foster mother produced the show Bewitched too.
Source, trust me, bro.
Yeah, so much of it, dude.
what's her name?
They kept her name out of it. They didn't want anyone to know that they had real witches, which I guess would be a valid thing at that moment in time, right? Like they couldn't even have Lucy and Ricky Ricardo sleep in the same bed, or even imply that they slept in the same bed at this time. So,
really,
yeah, but he talks about there being 25,000 witches in Los Angeles alone, and
he's undershooting that now, right? There's way more than that now.
probably a million.
And then he says how Zodiac Productions out of Texas was the lead booking company at the time, owned by Todd. He talks about how Mick Jagger sold his soul in jail.
Yeah, bro.
Just like, all right, John Todd, tell me more. Apparently, when witches write a book, they cast a spell on the book. Musicians do the same to the albums. We saw that in that video earlier, Ani. Music is 1/3 of a witch's power, apparently. But this Barnabas Collins guy from Dark Shadows was based off one of Todd's great-great-grandfathers, Prince Williams Collins, a Revolutionary War hero. Now, I haven't looked this guy up, but let's bring Thomas. What'd you bring up right here?
Oh, I just had a whole bunch of different things to look into here about John Todd. I just wanted, since we were talking about the mispronunciations, this book has a list of a few other ones that he made. And again, this isn't to like make fun of someone because they don't know how to pronounce a word. In fact, I'm the anti of that, because usually if someone mispronounces a word, it's because they've only read it in a book before and they haven't heard someone using it in a regular conversation, or maybe they picked up the mispronunciation of somebody else's, right? But for that reason alone, I don't think it's ever worth making fun of someone or discrediting them because they can't pronounce a word, because it means they read the word, which is better than most people, right? Like they're actually reading. So if anything, someone that doesn't know how to pronounce a word right is like noble. Like they're trying to teach themselves something. So with that sort of set aside, right? We're not making fun of a guy because he can't pronounce words. I think that these are that he claims to literally be one of the top 13 people on the planet in this Grand Illuminati Druid Council,
Grand Druid
and
Council
that
of 13.
he's like a master of black magic, and that he know all this from his bloodline. So here's, in addition to Coven and Illuminati, he also for the first few years, and this is on tape, right? Because they've got all these recordings of him, and over time he starts to correct himself. But he used to pronounce divination as devitation, yoga as yogi, and I guess the one that was one of the most egregious was that he used to pronounce Stonehenge, but he called it Stonehedge, like you would like have a hedge in your garden or something. And that one, it was particularly important because he claimed that all these like important ceremonies happened at Stonehenge. You know what I mean? And that this is where like the top Illuminati members would go and do all these rituals. So
Yes.
it would go to say, like, if you don't even know how to pronounce your own group Illuminati in the Latin form, and you call Stonehenge as Stonehedge, then again, this is more evidence that the guy was just kind of flying by the seat of his pants a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. That's too much to be a coincidence.
You're
But
right.
I think he got selected, or either was selected, because why would he be a person chick publications? Why would they invest into him if he wasn't working with something? You telling me his knowledge was that great into what was happening to the industry, and he can't even pronounce Illuminati?
Well, I think to answer maybe a rhetorical question, but that I think that John Todd was a master of rhetoric, right? Like he knew how to deliver information in such a compelling way that's usually how he would spread, is that he would have these cassette tapes and someone would hear them or hear him talking and be like, damn, this guy is great at this. Like, come talk at my church, come talk on my program or my radio show. And it just keeps escalating. So you've got this guy that has rhetoric down to a science, and all of the information that he's delivering, they can sort of play second fiddle to how well he can deliver that information. All of like the mispronunciations and everything, because again, it doesn't matter that he can't pronounce the word right. If he can say it with enough passion and knows how to time his words and knows how to deliver like a very pointful sort of speech, then that's kind of what he was able to drive off of, and that commands authority. And that's how he got his in with Jack Chick and everyone else that came after that.
Well put.
Absolutely.
But if it was me hearing those tapes, I would laugh.
Yeah.
I would just
The
laugh.
Illuminati met at Stonehenge. Yeah.
But I guess back
So-
then, yeah, you're right. They didn't have nothing like how we had. I'll say that.
So okay, so if anyone wants to do their own dives into John Todd, you've got the Wikipedia article, obviously, that's going to be filled with whatever bias that you would assign to Wikipedia already. There is a note here that right here, 1972. I'll zoom in a little bit. 1972, Todd became associated with the Jesus Movement Coffee House. So this is kind of where he starts to get a name for himself. In 73, he appears on a local Christian television show in Phoenix, Arizona, and was invited by an evangelist, Doug Clark, to appear on the Amazing Prophecies show. However, allegations surfaced that he had been making advances towards young women and teenage girls at the coffee house, incorporating witchcraft teachings into Bible studies, carrying a .38 caliber handgun in the church meetings, and using drugs. So this happens within his own community of Christians that he starts to try and entwine himself in. And they're like, dude, your presentations are fire. Come on my show, come to my church. But they start doing that, and he starts hitting on all the underage girls. He starts showing off that he's got a loaded gun on him. He's doing drugs, and he's basically telling people in these church groups, like, hey, actually, witchcraft isn't all that bad. We should start incorporating witchcraft into Bible study. This is literally what he's doing. At the same time that he's being this advocate and this whistleblower, right? He literally owns and is running occult bookstores in Texas. Like, he's the one that is putting this information out there and then telling people like be on the lookout for people that are spreading witchcraft, and like he's the guy.
Be on
Like
the
he's
lookout for people that look like me.
yeah, dude. Like this is like okay. So, anyways, that's the Wikipedia article that goes into a lot more of the detail. One of the things that got him on his kick was that he saw this movie called The Cross and the Switchblade, which then, yeah, you got something, Jules?
What's weird about this is this a story of Nikki Cruz? No, wrong one.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Yep, long before faith-based films became a regular feature of mainstream movies, there was Cross and the Switchblade, the story of Pastor David Wilkerson and gang member Nikki Cruz.
Okay, so
this is
Nikki
like
Cruz
the OG
wrote,
Christian movie.
Yeah, he wrote a book called Run Baby Run, and I read it in like the 4th grade, dude, and it was about like him and this being in this Latino gang, and like it's very violent. I love the book. He seems like a great guy, to be honest with you, but he became like a pastor himself and like changed his entire life around.
Well, and I think this is the context to look at John Todd in, is that John Todd, he comes across the Cross and the Switchblade, and he's like, here's this guy, like gang member turned sort of like born again Christian advocate, and makes a big name for himself through that process. So John Todd applies that, but he's like, instead of me being in a Latino gang, I was in the Illuminati, and it's the same sort of traction. Literally, like it's kind of the same thing that he's trying to put forward here. That he's replaying the Cross and the Switchblade book and movie and storyline, but with him coming from like a Satan worshiping Illuminati cult.
He has to be the first that did that. He has to be the first that ever grifted off the Illuminati.
Well,
nobody prior to him.
Absolutely. I think he was one of the first that claimed to have been like first person report. Like because a lot of, you can track a lot of his influence back to Myron Fagan, who had a set of records that he had put out that talked about the Illuminati and like
those.
The Council 3. Yeah. So the Myron Fagan are like super OG conspiracy. Well, that is also where John Todd, I think, got put onto Illuminati. If I'm gonna keep my devil's advocate hat on, then John Todd was just a con man.
Yeah, I was going to read a little bit more about this. So he was taken into the outer court to be trained as a satanic priest at 13. So he says, guys, he became a high priest at 18 and was drafted into the army as a witch in Vietnam and re-enlisted to Germany for 6 years. You have to have at least 3 generations of witches in your family. He had 7 that he knew of. 2 months into his 6-year enlistment in Germany, Todd was drunk and on drugs. He killed an officer, a sergeant in downtown Stuttgart. He was put in solitary, and then he called his foster mother, and then 3 days later, that's a funny number, right? 3 days later, on honorable discharge, he was released by Senator William Saxby. Apparently, this guy was in the inner circle of his foster mother. And Congressman Wiley, as well as 3 or 4 generals. Talks about Dr. Raymond Buckland. So since he was a male Collins, he had a position to take on the Grand Druid Council. During this initiation, a ceremonial knife was handed to him by Senator George McGovern. Now, you hear him talk about this Senator George McGovern a lot. But he talks about the council meetings held 8 times a year. May 1st, which was Beltane. August 1st, which was Luxada or something. Ostara, March 21st. Imbolc, February 2nd. Mabon, Samhain, Yule, and Letha. So these are these pagan holidays that we all know about that he could have definitely learned about before he put this out. He considers the Rothschilds not human, but gods. The counterfeit of Christ. and the
Okay.
embodiment of Lucifer. And they apparently arrived in UFOs.
Mm.
And it talks about him receiving these letters from Philip de Rothschild, who apparently, one stating they have found Adam, some weird shit. But apparently Philip
found that
de
tomb of Gilgamesh
Rothschild, who
that
is
Hillary
the
Clinton was looking
father
for.
of Philistine de Rothschild, the weird chick that always had the goat necklace on. He was a race car driver. And apparently he ran the Illuminati at that time. So I don't know. He could have just that dude could just be.
If you listen to the Myron Fagan albums, then you probably knew who the Rothschilds were, because
Exactly.
that's part of this conspiracy lore that you can kind of piece together over time.
I didn't even take that into consideration, dude. I didn't even think that was definitely that around that time that came out, right?
So another really interesting claim. This is from the wiki page, but you can find this. There's two different sources on this one. That John Todd also claimed that he was John F. Kennedy's personal warlock.
That's
so
so funny.
These are like very huge claims. Like these are, and like for example, right here it says in the same article, Todd claimed in his testimony to have murdered an officer in Germany and escaped prison with the help of the Illuminati. But not only did records not show that this occurred, but that I mentioned before that all these different Christians, they ended up hiring private investigators to like look into this guy. So one of those was Christianity Today, and they found out that he had never even been to Vietnam, period. Let alone he never went to Germany and murdered some officer, like wasn't a Green Beret. He was just a clerk. And his discharge papers included emotional instability with pseudologia fantastica, which is just a fancy word for compulsive lying. So he literally got removed from the military because he lived in a fantasy world. Or that's, again, this is like the official government report. So it's important here. This Christianity Today, who was one of the organizations that did some digging, you can find this one right here. This is Christian Research Institute, which is kind of like a follow-up on this. They have a whole deep dive that they've done into John Todd. And then there's another one called The Legend of John Todd. This is the Christianity Today article. And I just want to, anyone can go and find this online. And when you load it, it'll like only show you like a little bit of it. If you can do a little fancy footwork, you can hide all the stuff that's blocking you from the whole article. So this is the definitive John Todd article that I've ever come across, the longest one, and it's on Christianity Today. Is from February 1979. So this was done right at the peak, or maybe at the beginning of the downfall of John Todd at his height, right? Because he came out around 72, 73, made a name for himself over those course of years, and that's when he had these falling outs with all these Christian organizations. So yeah, this, like, basically, if we just sat here and read this article, it would just be like crazy claim after crazy claim. It's fascinating, the kind of things that he came up with. And again, this is pre-internet, so I really do think that there was way less at risk when he would say make these wild claims, right? Like, I know Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and they talked to me about how they invoke demons into their records, and I was John F. Kennedy's personal warlock. Like,
Yeah.
who's gonna fact check this dude?
But this is my thing. Now that they did know that he was a compulsive liar, why does he keep his fame? And I think that's why he becomes useful to the Illuminati. Because like I just seen somebody leave a comment on your page just now, Jules, saying that the Rothschilds are the lizards, alien reptilian wizards or whatever. He was probably the first person to say what you said, Jules, about saying that they're gods or they're Nephilim or whatever type story, with the honest God truth that these people are none of that. They're just humans. They probably learn occult secrets to make contact or penetrate the ethers, which has been done thousands of years ago, you know? So to deify them, to make the Illuminati deified, I think he's contributing to some of the lies of conspiracy theories that people still regurgitate today. So I see his use in throwing the crowd off from certain lies, not to say that everything he said about the Illuminati is a lie. I think everything that he included himself in, definitely for what Thomas read, is a lie. But everything what he says, I think the satanic music industry does invoke entities. I just seen a music video yesterday, and I said, yo, this is some real advanced occult magic here from what I've studied. But his conspiracies of what he's saying occurs is useful. So I think the Illuminati did end up using him, but he never really was in the Illuminati. Because why we're talking about
with that.
No, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Also, I 100% agree with that. That he was the useful idiot that
Right.
could disseminate this information and could kind of like kick up water a little bit, and that there was a little bit of traction with people talking about Satanism in the music industry, because it was 1967 is when the Beatles released their Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Time Band or whatever, that album that has Aleister Crowley on it, which is a direct reference of, you know, literal Satanism being woven into the music industry. So this is essentially a full 5 or 6 years before John Todd ever makes his first peep about any of this. But no one was really like ringing the bell and saying like, not only is this happening, but I was there, like I signed the contract, you know, with these people, like, and from John Todd too. If you ever watch like the Prophecy Club or the 700 Club or all these old videos where they've got these ex-Satanists that are like, I used to be, you know, a vampire and now I'm a Christian, or I used to be in the Illuminati, or I used to be a Freemason, and like all those dudes, they're following the archetype that John Todd sort of set. He kind of started that, and I would almost argue that John Todd is just following the archetype that Leo Taxel set. What I mentioned earlier, that guy from the late 1800s that talked about Satanism and got the church all up in a like uproar, and it was just because he was trying to make the church look bad. So like there could be a very real connection between what John Todd's doing.
Let me ask a question. If you're a vampire and you become a Christian, do you lose your fangs?
I think it's more of like an honor system thing. You're just not supposed to show them off anymore.
Are there good vampires? I mean, you got Blade.
Yeah.
Even better, like, is it only Catholics that can fight vampires, right? Because what other denominations make holy water? Isn't that like a specifically a Catholic thing?
I think it was Gnostic first. Actually, I've been
probably came from something earlier, like the Gnostics.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you were to compare, say, holy water in Catholic Mass to Baptist, Protestant, Lutheran, a lot of those, I'm not familiar with them ever having holy water, right? And holy water is supposed to be one of the things used against vampires. So the vampires just not even care if you're Baptist,
right? Good.
They only
like
want
if you're holding up a cross, they're like, that's not a Catholic cross. I don't care about that.
Nah, for real. And you're right, because I've been watching this show Evil, and they make like funny references. I've
watched that show. That's good.
You see how they make the funny, and some of that shit is real now. But the people,
absolutely.
they can like make logical sense. Like, there's no fucking demons. This is because of this science stuff. You know, but it'd be really a demon, and now they're kind of like believing it now, like it probably is demons and stuff. So
here I got something that I think you guys will like if you've never seen this before.
Please.
So
is this right here?
I mentioned that John Todd has his voice sort of elevated a whole new heights once he crosses paths with Jack D. Chick. So Jack Chick makes these little Chick track pamphlets, and you can go to chick.com, and I think you can read most of them for free. Yeah, I mean, most people have probably seen one of these and just didn't know what they were looking at, but you'd find them on payphones or in like out in public for the longest time. And there's like
Like the
hundreds or
paranoid
even
pamphlet,
thousands of these
bro.
damn things. Right. The OG one is this one right here called This Was Your Life. And you can like read the entire thing in whole. And it basically just says that when you die, God and Saint Peter and everyone else, they sit there and they watch a movie of your life, and like you're sitting here like Jesus is next to you, and you're doing like the most horrendous things from your life, right? And he's sitting there judging you, and it's basically the whole concept is that when you die, like you can't lie anymore, like you can't hide all of your sins from this judgment. So, anyways, this is where Jack T. Chick comes in, but Jack T. Chick links up with John Todd, and he's like, yo, John, you've got the most wild stories here. I have to do an actual full color comic book, which Jack Cheetic had not really done before. So he started this new line called the Crusaders. And issue 2 of the Crusaders is Broken Cross. And this one is basically co-written by John Todd. So this comic book doesn't exist without John Todd sort of being the creative force behind this comic book. So inside this comic, I was trying to find it before we started. I've got a printed copy of this one. But here it is, Broken Cross, and it starts out with a bunch of hippies in a van, and they're like, driving cross country doing their hippie thing. And then they end up one of them gets snatched by these heroin using Satanists, right? And I'm not just like flippantly saying
How can
Satanist.
they snatch her when they're on heroin, dude?
Well, these guys are, but they're in the back of this van, right? They pick up hitchhikers.
Look
and
at them.
while
They're like
in the van,
mainlining, and they're like, wait. All right.
they basically, they inject her with some kind of drug, and then they snatch her away. So here she is, she's drugged, they snatch her away. And then immediately they're saying, we dedicate this girl's blood to Lucifer. There's an upside down cross. There's the pentagram, right? We've got like a little bowl.
Isn't that a pentacle? Like, if it's that way, it's a pentacle, right? And if it's upside down, that makes it a pentagram.
I think potato.
Yeah,
a lot of these.
I'm just saying, if he's an occultist, like, wouldn't he know this? Like, I don't know.
And here it is. Give us the power over blood. And then here they are with the chalice, and they're literally saying, Lucifer, we drink of her blood to you, thou God of peace and love. And then it says here, this act takes place 8 times a year in witches' covens.
That's what I was talking about earlier on the Black Sabbaths or the those pagan holidays.
And he's got a note here too. The little footnote says, upside down red cross is a humanist symbol sacrifice. Corinthians 10:20-22. So anyway, so the rest of this, it kind of develops on this story of this like coven of Luciferians that are kidnapping, women and children and sacrificing them.
When's your next comic
Satanic Panic
like this?
Right. When
you need to make a series like this, Thomas.
Right. But the funny thing is, if you research church patristic origin Adamantius, one of the mistakes he made in helping write the King James or edit or whatever he was doing, that the Judaic interpretation of Behel Shem Shahar becomes the Bible's transliteration for Lucifer, meaning that Lucifer isn't even a real character or being biblically. It's translated from Judaism for what they call the morning star.
Or Venus.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a transliteration from one patristic origin Adamantius, and it basically became a character or archetype.
I was about to say, like an egregore almost, like they made this deity out of worshiping it so much.
All of his egregores now.
Right. No, dude, exactly. Yeah, no, I think you're right, man.
But
Very interesting.
that's crazy that one mistake one person made. Now everybody in the world thinks Lucifer was a
Is this
real biblical
being
character. He's
right?
he's not a real character. He doesn't exist from a standpoint biblically. He's a transliteration from Judaism for Shahel ben Shahar,
Shahar, the
which
morning
just means
star.
morning star.
Yeah,
And there
yeah.
was no ever
I've heard
interaction.
Esoteric Eddie talk about it a bunch, man.
Yeah, and Jesus at the end of Revelation becomes the morning star. He's called the morning star in Revelations. You can look it up. Jesus is called the morning star. So who's the morning star? Who's this star in the morning that you
Right? Who are
figure
you
out is
praying to?
all? Yeah, I'm just saying, like, people, when we look at this stuff, like Luciferianism is egregore cult, all in itself. Because somebody asked me the other day, is demon possession real? Or have we made, just like how we say the gray aliens, in people's mind, when you think aliens, you automatically kind of think of little bug-eyed blue green men. You kind of do a little bit.
Little Ant-Man. Yeah.
You kind of think of that, like the homunculus, like Warren says, something like that. But have we made that shit real in the ether? So. You know, have we created an egregore where that stuff now is like demons, or the way that we think of it is manifested psychologically in infra consciousness, you know?
I know exactly what you're saying. Yes, I do think we have.
Mm-hmm. And all of that, Lucifer, Satan, Jesus.
People fear some being named Satan when really Satan means adversary. It's just something adversarial. And so you have all these people fearing Satan, and it's like, it's not even like, it's I don't know. It's the same thing with Lucifer, man.
Well, it's and like, the premise of Satan too, outside of the book of Job, which is where that like adversarial story starts from, where it's really, you can read it as like God just like playing like a mental, you know, mind exercise with himself. Like, what if I do this? Oh wait, what if I do that? And people interpret that as. But then there's also the Manichaeans, which were like a sect based on this slave out of Mainz, who was the widow's son, which has all these like Masonic ties to it. But the Manichaean philosophy was that, well, if God or if Jesus represents like all of these good aspects, like this sort of masculine aspect of the generative concept, then there has to be an exact and opposite equal. But if there's an opposite equal to this, if it's truly equal, then it can't be bad. So that's kind of where you had a rise of people that were worshiping the bad parts of everything, like vices and sins, and they would actually and then this is kind of where public prostitution and state religions of sympathetic magic became a norm, because they saw it was equal to worshiping the good God, right? If you worship the bad God, then you're just worshiping. But this was a radical concept that no one really had been pushing. And I think in like the mid 400s, one of the popes comes and he tries to stamp out this Manichaeism, at least by the way that they're practicing it. And then it kind of just gets incorporated into freaking Christianity as a whole, like through the concept of Satan, which was like the exact opposite of what the Pope was trying to do. But yeah, you can almost follow this lineage. But before then, the whole premise, as I understand it, of Christianity and why it was such a hit when it first came out, is it was the antithesis of having a Satan or a Lucifer character, whereas every religion before Christianity was centered on fear and panic and anger and just preying on like your worst of emotions. And then they all also required secret mystery religions. They all required you to like do some kind of oath or learn some information in secret that you couldn't reveal to the rest of the world. And Christianity comes along and it says no secrets, no fear. You can kind of sum it up as those two things. And that was I guess the first nugget where it like started to gain traction. But people can't live without fear. They're like, what do you mean no fear? Like that's how I run my whole life. So when Manichaeism comes along,
concept,
yeah, dude, like the Manichaeism thing, it found this vacuum that it filled immediately.
There were Gnostics too. The Manichaeans were Gnostics. and they follow concepts of Zoroastrianism.
Zoroastrianism.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah, you can bring this all the way back to like the concept of like Mazda, right? Like Mazda being their
Ahura
Jesus.
Mazda. Yeah.
Or Mazda and Zervin. But the Lurianic Kabbalists played on that concept too, Thomas, that they believe that somebody has to do evil in the world to balance the universe or some shit. So you look into Lurianic Kabbalism in their process, they believe that it's necessary for these people to do evil in the world to balance out the universe.
So
Wow.
and to bring it back to John Todd again, to hammer in the point that he literally owned occult bookstores, and this was before the internet. So if you're wondering like where would people even learn about this, you would find yourself in a cult bookstore, and he was that guy. He was the Google of like occultism and black magic. So he very much had a direct line to source all these different claims and information to kind of put together and make his own new flavor of it.
That's crazy.
That is crazy, dude.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
What did he name his bookstores?
I wonder what the bookstore was called.
That's what I mean. Like, did he call it John Todd Books or
Probably
Satanic?
not.
Apparently, this was in
Honestly,
Texas,
I
right?
think that might be in the Christianity Today article.
Oh, okay. If you could find that, that'll be dope.
It's so it says so this is all based on his own claims too, but John Todd claimed that he went through this period of backsliding where he became a born again Christian, but like I was mentioned before in that Wikipedia article, that he was getting kicked out of churches because he was telling the Bible study groups to incorporate witchcraft into their Bible studies, and they were like, "Yo, what is go?" So he considered that part of his backsliding period. So he claimed that during his backsliding, he sold occult books from a store he ran in Dayton, Ohio, but emphasized that he never got back into occult activity. So his claim was that, hey guys, I relapsed, I got back into occultism, but it was just to set up a store to sell occult books to other people. But I myself, I never got back
I'm no longer an
into.
occultist.
Yeah, I don't do the occult stuff, which ends up being, I think, a lie, because I got one final thing I can share here, which I think will put a nice little tie at the end of this. So, okay, again, this is the Christianity Today article. It's well worth looking into. The last thing that they mention in the John Todd wiki article is about how he got sent to prison and released in 2004, but because he was having mental issues in 2004, he ended up going into a psychiatric facility, and that's where he died in 2007. So he had like these last 3 years. But the thing that they cite as the evidence for this actually happening is this lawsuit, which I found. And interestingly enough, in this one, he's going by one of his later in life pseudonyms, which is Collins with the K, Kolllyns.
Why?
So
Yeah.
that's his real name?
Well, no, what what is even his real name? But
Who is he,
so
man?
in this
Yeah,
one,
who is this
because
guy?
he registered this suit,
Okay.
and he goes under plaintiff Chris Sarin Collins. So that's the name that he has on this particular case. But
Okay,
in this case, they've got some incredible. So it says right here, plaintiff claims that, and this is him being in incarceration. So he's trying to like sue them for all kinds of discrimination. They're claiming he's not allowed to attend group religious services for Wiccans. So he's trying to sue the jail for not letting him practice being a Wiccan in jail. So the claims of him having abandoned occultism and all this stuff definitely are not true, because here he is in 2000. This is a 2006, I believe, lawsuit where he's basically suing for the right to be a Wiccan. He's being forced to watch drug addiction treatment videotapes, which incorporate non-Wiccan religious elements. So they're making him watch like Christian videotapes to get off drugs, like let Jesus be your drug. And he's like, no, like you need a Wiccan version of this for me. And then also he was making female undergarments out of his regular clothes and like wearing them around in jail, and was claiming that was also like a discrimination against him. So anyways, again, the claims that he was like, I'm no longer in this, I'm born again. I don't know if they were ever true. It almost seems that you can find at any given moment of his life from the 1970s until 2007, like he was deep into the occult. He was still a practicing and self-identifying as a Wiccan and everything else. And that's in his own court case against the government, right? Like this isn't claims being made against him. This is him saying, like, I'm a Wiccan and they're discriminating against me.
Making female garments and wearing them in jail, that just killed me there. So I don't know what else to say.
And he sued them over it, over them taking his
he
handmade female garments away from him. So it's a wild story, dude. Like the story of John Todd is absolutely incredible. It probably even outshines Fritz Springmeier's life story, which also involves him going to prison for, I think, armed robbery or something. Like it's interesting, the thread of the people that are in this particular vein of claims of saying, like, I know the exact names of Illuminati members. All either have like the absolute worst character assassination story arcs or ... right?
Dude, guys, I found something that I want to read to y'all. So this is in Spritz Springmeier.
Yeah, you're doing it.
Fritz Springmeier.
Get a better name, Fritz. Come on.
Bloodlines of the Illuminati on the Collins chapter. So H.P. Blavatsky, who was involved with spiritism, started the Theosophical Society and also a periodical named Lucifer in 1887. The woman who co-edited Lucifer with her was the medium Mabel Collins. Mabel Collins later had a disagreement with HPB and left. And it is possible that a few of the Rockefellers joined Lucius Trust. So this is just talking about Lucius Trust. Now, it talks about other people in his family. So when they came over here, they changed their name from Collins to Todd, the Todd branch of the Collins family. So I guess it was a much bigger family. Talks about Manly P. Hall, which is an extension of Theosophy, as well as members of the Hall family, such as Manly P. Hall, whose wife was a Bauer of the Rothschild bloodline. So, yeah, and then it talks about Thelma Todd, who was known as Hot Toddy, which is the phrase at Ole Miss, a college in Mississippi. Like the phrase of their school is hotty toddy. It's very weird to me. It's almost a little occultic, to be honest with you.
Is that true? That should be able to be researchable if that's true.
If it's true, man. I mean, this is all just in Fritz Springmeier's book. Apparently this chick hung out with Lucky Luciano, who was nicknamed Charlie Lucifer. And you can look at the mob, and there's ties directly into the Savoy family.
Also, just to throw this one out there about the hot toddy one, right?
Yeah.
Hot toddy was the name of a popular cocktail drink that dates back to the late 1700s, which is a full century before the lady named Hot Toddy was around. So I don't know if there's any link between the drink and the person and the sorority or what.
Like, did that family create that drink?
It came from India.
So, okay, he was of the Collins family, Todds, and at some point after coming to Christ, told people he had been a member of the Grand Druid Council of the Illuminati. Before proceeding to tell about his life, let's interrupt to discuss about whether John Todd is okay. So he calls him Johnny Todd. That's fucking weird.
What are you reading from?
Fritz Springmeier's book.
Okay.
So he basically says, even the people who feel Johnny Todd was a fraud admit he had to have been in Satanism. They simply claim he wasn't as high as he thought.
Yep.
Every negative thing that has been said towards John Todd that has any substance that I have been able to hear can be explained away very easily if a person understands. I don't know what MPD is.
Multiple personality disorder.
Personality disorder. Okay. If John Todd was who he claimed he was, then it is an absolute given that he had multiple personality disorder, because that is part of the training, part of the preparation necessary to become part of the Illuminati hierarchy. So, I mean, this is just MK Ultra, right?
He was in the military during, like the late 60s, early 70s period. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that he would have bumped into some sort of MK Ultra programming while in there.
This is funny, Thomas. It says, it appears that after his conversion to Christ, he received so much lack of understanding and persecution from Christians that he backslided for a period of time.
He literally blamed it on the rest of Christians not accepting his information, as like they made him relapse and go back into occultism. Like it was this drug that he was addicted to. Like, and I do believe that part. I believe that John Todd was obsessed with occultism and kept sliding back. I don't think he ever slid out of it. So like the backsliding part, that part is the most questionable to me, because at no point in his entire history does it ever look like, oh yeah, he totally went full Christian at that point. Even when he was getting invited to churches, he was like, he was doing weird stuff with them.
Listen to how it says that he was brought back to Christ. He was brought back to Christ by the repeated message, Jesus loves you. And I'm just like, all right, man. I mean, if you are an occultist and you're that deep into, or I don't know, if you're filled up with demons, like, I don't know, it seems like this guy never got away from what he was trying to get away from.
I learned a lot.
Yeah, dude. No, that begs the question, guys. What do y'all think? Do you think he's a PSYOP or not? Man,
I think.
Oh no, man. It's still up in the air for me, guys. I mean, I'm leaning more towards that he was an Illuminati plant. That was like, here, look at this fucking clown while we're doing all this over here, right? Or maybe some disinformation in there. You never know.
Well, the question is Jack Chick in the Illuminati? That's the real question, because he's the ones who put him out here to us. Without him, we never would have heard of him.
Yeah,
right.
You're absolutely right, dude. To say that there's not some facet of the Illuminati in anything Christian is fucking stupid, right? We know that it's infiltrated every system, every religious system that is that I can think of, especially at the top levels.
Adam Weishaupt said in his letters that we must infiltrate everything, and basically they want to return the world to a paradisial state, whereas there's anarchy, and basically they want to have the power of a sovereign government to decide who lives and who dies. That's what they want. And they say, what do they want? They want power, and they'll get power if it's the occult. Then the Illuminati said, use it if it's going to give you power, but they don't really care about the occult. They just care about power.
Right.
That's my understanding too, is that even the OG Bavarian Illuminati, they were staunch atheists to the point, like absolute rationalists, to where if they thought you believed in God or in Satan, they thought you were just as much of an idiot. You were just on the left side or the right side of their idiot scale, but it was like you were still dumb, but that information could be used to manipulate you. So when this is probably a deviation from where Fritz Springmeier and John Todd kind of took Illuminati, but I've always considered that the real nefarious aspect of the Illuminati was its structure and how they organized, the way that you would have to take notes on all your peers, and that even if all three of us are in the Illuminati, none of us know that except for someone that's above all three of us. They're the only ones that know all three of us are in it, and we're sitting here taking notes on each other, and I'm going to report it back to my Illuminati master, and you guys are just, and it's just like, we look like idiots because we're snitching on each other constantly and telling our handler, and our handlers, all of our handle, it's like three chick that find out that they're dating the same guy, and it's like, what? You know what I mean? That's kind of like, but that practice, that kind of is Illuminati. So now when someone's like the hip hop Illuminati, or the Rothschilds Illuminati, whatever, all they're talking about is this system, this pyramid system, where you just have people that know above you, and as you go down, you never know anything above your step, right? And that system is Illuminati. Like, it doesn't have to come from Bavaria or have links to Adam Weishaupt or anything, but it also explains the weird conflation between like the Jesuit order and the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons and the Bavarian Illuminati, and like and even industry, music industry. It's just cause they structure themselves in the same way that the Illuminati did. And that's because the Illuminati kind of started, and then they disseminated and entered all these other places. So they brought that with them into their new targets, and then bam, that's where we've got it now.
Yeah.
Well, the latest one was Weishaupt, and he was with the Jesuits. So
Weishaupt was forced to live under the Jesuits because the Jesuits had full control over academia in Bavaria for, I think, 2 centuries. Right. And while Weishaupt was, I think, like 15 or 16, the Pope basically bans the Jesuit order from having control. And at this moment in time, he takes over, but he finds himself teaching alongside all these people that have been indoctrinated in the Jesuit order of education for literal centuries, like 4 or 5 generations of families. So yeah, he's a Jesuit, but only in that, like, he was like a fish in water, right? Like, he had to be, because he was surrounded by it. But that was my understanding, is that was his leading charge, was like how much he hated the Jesuit order, but also he wanted to use their techniques against them and improve on them.
He hated what the church had did. Basically, the church is the first model of the Illuminati, because they will kill you for what you were thinking.
Yeah. Very much.
So I don't blame them for starting something to an antithesis of something like that. But today it's gotten out of control. The agendas, I don't know if they're all on the same plan.
I don't think they are. I think they're very unorganized. I think there may be too many, because you have the Illuminati, but it's made up of all these different little groups that worship these different deities, and they have their own symbols, and you can look at it as a collective if you want, but no, they're very unorganized, dude. They're exposing themselves right now. It almost seems like it's just supposed to happen.
Well, let's play off Thomas' theory. What if the ones that are disorganized, the ones above them, are organized and want them to be disorganized? It's just crazy, because they'd be like, hey, we want to make everybody gay. Well, we want to make everybody transgender. We want to make everybody, go to war, so a nuclear war can happen. Well, we just want people to say Satan is king. So it's just all, and it's like probably a couple of groups of people that methodically, they even got it down to of mathematics, to a formula that they're using with this chaos of all of these appendages to this one thing. But I think what Thomas said that sounds about right. Nobody knows but a couple of people.
I mean, imagine for just a split second that if there was some nefarious global Illuminati coordinated in any way, but imagine if they were really atheists at the top, and it wasn't Satan worshippers or Luciferians. It's literal just atheists
just laughing at everybody.
And they're really just like, how can we stir up the most? And that would be by like, there's Satan worshippers out there. Oh, hey, Satan worshippers, the Christians are coming after you. And like, you know, it's just kind of helter skelter on like an even more like global level.
Well, Dr. Joseph Farrell said that they're atheists at the top. He said they were atheists, and he called them godless.
Hmm.
Like they don't believe in that, but he said that they have a materialistic cosmology. They think that superstition, the occult, religion, all can be explained by scientific methods, and they want to gather all of those methods and just have everybody put in their own little cage of how they understand it because they're at the top. So they say, this is how we understand you. We may be wrong by how we understand you, but this is our scientific method about you, you know?
There's
Yeah.
a book called The Ancient School of Wisdom, and I think another one called Bavarian Illuminati. It's like a big, thick one, but The Ancient School of Wisdom has a recounting from all the different papers that have been found about the Bavarian Illuminati, and they piece together what some of the rituals and the rites entailed. And some of those explicitly were made to find out if someone believed in any sort of religion. So that, and there's also the source of some of the claims of like Satan worshiping or like black masses. Like they would have them do some things that were such an affront to a religious person that the only way that you would go through it is if you didn't believe in it at all, like you didn't put any stock in it. And Adam Weishaupt even has some of his original notes that basically said, they designed some degrees where you would have to sort of like say horrible things against God just so that they could weed out people that were bumpkins. Like that was kind of how he was referring to it.
Wow.
That's crazy,
Wow.
dude.
That's wow. That's
I mean, I'd have
crazy.
to agree with you though, Thomas. Yeah, it seems like that's what it is. I've always wanted to have this discussion for a while now, and
Mhm.
so finally glad to. And now there's other things that I want to dive into off of this.
Mhm.
I'm sure I'll go through this book again at some point and find some other passages in here. I really wanted to find the one where it describes this Mothers of Darkness ritual.
Good
But
luck.
yeah,
A lot of
no,
that, like we might never know where the sources of some of this stuff kind of came from, man.
yeah, man, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But anyway, guys, I appreciate y'all coming and talking to me, coming and kicking it on Greypilled. Is there anything else that y'all wanted to put out there? Y'all want to put your plugs in or something?
Sure. And thanks for having me. I think this was very dope and constructive. I learned a lot.
Hell yeah, man. Good. Me too.
Yeah, you guys can come over to Patreon. We have discussions like this in a group setting. You know, we have 20, 30, 40 people on at once. Very a lot of information from different minds. It's called patreon.com THE_spiritual shade room and put the number, no, just put spiritual shade room. My Instagram is spiritual shade room 1, but it's patreon.com THE_spiritual shade room. Or you can just follow me on YouTube, Osaru.
All
Hey,
right.
it's always awesome talking to Ani. You should check out our backlog. We've done a couple different shows together before. You have to come back on again. It's always
That's where I've
end
seen
up
you,
like
man. Yeah.
talking about a little topic, and then there's like 20 new things that come out of that. And today was no
Wow.
different. So that was
No,
kind of cool.
I love y'all's all of the things y'all talk about, y'all's discussions y'all have with Juan and with Donut. Is some of the best conversations that I've heard in this realm that we're in. So thank y'all for
We've just
coming on.
added to the John Todd lore. So, and you can find that and a bunch more. ParanoidAmerican.com is probably the best place to find me. And if you're watching this live, I got to do my shout out for NASAcomic.com, which is this 40-page comic I've been working on for over 5 years about Stanley Kubrick and the moon landings. And what I've come to understand now is a new field of research called cryptokubrology, which combines cryptography, Kubrick, and like the study of hidden symbolism within Kubrick movies. So I would consider this the first crypto Kubrology comic book, if that's not trademarked already. So yeah, if you're interested in conspiracy theories, moon landing, Kubrick, anything else related, you should grab a copy at nasacomic.com. I don't think anyone else out there is putting out this kind of content. So if you want to see more of it, please help support and back it.
And you're doing Clockwork Orange. We're gonna do that.
Yeah, we're gonna do the Clockwork Orange movie. So yeah, me and Ani will get together and do a decode on that. I don't know, next week or week after or something. 100%.
I can't wait for that. I gotta go rewatch.
Everybody be sure to tune into that and go to paranoidamerican.com. Guys, just dropped episode 8 of Elohim Etymology, Marduk Part 2. It was a great episode. Adrian had to fix the volume on it, so there's some parts where the end of my sentence kind of cuts out at a couple places. But just drop that on Rumble. I'll be dropping it on YouTube and Spotify probably tomorrow. Let's see. I don't really have anything else that I'm pushing right now. Y'all go follow me on Instagram, Greypilled_podcast. I'm on Twitter, Greypilledpod. I'm on Rumble, Bitchute, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Schizo News Network every Saturday. I missed last night, but it's okay. It was my son's birthday, so we had to go and take him and his friends to the movies. It's fun.
That's important.
Yeah. And so, but that's every Saturday, guys. Tonight, later tonight, at like maybe here in 3.5, 4 hours, I'm gonna do a cryptid watch review, maybe with Chef and conspiracy extremists on my channel. So y'all stay tuned. If not tonight, maybe tomorrow night. Something that I've been wanting to do every week, just like go through cryptid videos and watch them and see what people think. So if y'all have any cryptid videos y'all want to send through to me here in the next few hours, feel free to do that. Go to oddfellowsbrand.com, support my other co-host Cody. You can also go to organite.com. That's the state of Oregon-ITE. Put in promo code GP for 10% off your purchase. And you'd be supporting my boy Isaac by doing that. So they're all friends of mine. And paranoidamerican.com, guys. Yeah, this was fun.
Thanks, y'all.
Y'all stay Greypilled. And we'll see y'all on the other side.
Peace.
Spread the word with propaganda packs, all for just $40 shipped at paranoidamerican.com.
Paranoid propaganda packs. We got facts on these sticker slaps. So grab yourself a stack and go attack with these paranoid propaganda packs.
These huge all-weather slaps will last in public for years to come. Remind citizens that birds are not real. Self-immolation is an option, and might make you magnetic. Do your part and get a propaganda pack today from paranoidamerican.com.
Yeah, paranoid propaganda packs. We got facts on these sticker slaps. So grab yourself a stack and go attack with these paranoid propaganda packs.
What are you waiting for? Go to paranoidamerican.com right now and get a paranoid propaganda pack.
Gather round, all you mystery seekers. We're diving deep into the dark, exploring realms beyond what's known, where the secrets of the shadows leave their mark. Come take a ride on the Greypilled Express, where esoteric knowledge is our guest. From conspiracies to cryptids, we unveil the veil. Mysticism and the occult, our forbidden tale. Join us on